Great to see you here, Giles.
Thank you for welcoming me. Let me know when you wish me to start presenting, and by all means, just put me on the main screen. You don't need to keep the slide there. Whenever you're ready, I will start for you.
Okay. Hi, Giles. I'm sending the remote control to you. Feel free to take the control of the slide.
I have no slides, so all I need you to do is just put the main screen to me, to my video. I don't need to control. Thank you. Just to the to me speaking. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, we are ready.
Okay. Well, I thought you were going to put me on the main screen, but not to worry. That was the benefit of me not having any slides. But welcome, everybody, and thank you for being on this platform today. What a fascinating yet challenging time to be a leader, when so much we thought we knew about how to lead and operate is open for question. So we're in the midst of a metamorphosis at the moment. There are profound shifts that are affecting the way we work, how and why we do things, and the purpose and meaning that we bring to our organizations, our social systems, and our wider civilization. It's what the ancient Greeks referred to as kairos, a supreme moment in our human history, which, if not adequately acted upon by us, may pass us by. So how do we, leaders, change agents, cultural creatives, adequately act upon this metamorphic moment in our human history? And that's a big question, with a beautifully simple response: connection. Connecting deep within inside ourselves to our own true nature, and connecting deep within life itself, accessing the logic of life, what we refer to in the book Regenerative Leadership as accessing the logic of life. And we unpack the logic of life in the book. And I say we, myself and my co-author Laura Storm, the sustainability specialist from Denmark. And what we unpack in the book is this way of connecting in to nature's wisdom and learning from living systems and applying that to our leadership development, which I'll unpack in this talk today. It reminds me of a wise philosopher, an ancient man, Seneca, who says that true wisdom consists in not departing from nature, but in molding our conduct according to her laws and model. And it's this not departing from nature and accessing true wisdom, which is fundamental to the way in which we lead going forward, so that we bring a different quality of consciousness to our solutions than which created the problems in the first place. And what we explore in the book is a journey of separation that we've been on, which unfortunately has encouraged us to depart from nature. And in so doing, actually pulled us away from wisdom. And with it has come a deep sense of psychic atrophy that has created problems, sense of separateness, and a mechanistic narrowing down frame of attention that actually creates the problems that we're facing today, whether it be COVID, climate change, rapid biodiversity loss, lack of natural resources, and so forth. All of that is underpinned by this quality of awareness. Now, what we need to do is shift that consciousness back into a reconnection, a journey of regeneration. And what I'd like to explore today is that regenerative leadership. What's at the heart of regenerative leadership? Well, essentially, a way of leading that doesn't just enable our organizations to become more profitable, more agile, more efficient and effective in these times of increased volatility and turbulence, but a way of leading that actually creates the conditions for developmental cultures, cultures that enable us to become more of who we truly are in the workplace, cultures that unlock our brilliance, allow us to bring in creativity that then bubbles up and diffuses the burden of bureaucracy that so much organizations are weighed down by. Developmental cultures that actually create strategies and solutions, products and propositions that enhance the fabric of society in the more than human world upon which we all depend. Why would we wish for anything less? It's what we refer to as life-affirming business or regenerative business, which we define in the book. Now, is this some kind of fanciful utopian dream? Heavy on rhetoric, but light on substance, perhaps? Well, no, it's quietly going mainstream and has been for some years now. And the business examples we pack into the 350 pages of the book are testament to this. For instance, the CEO of a bank facing the increasingly toxic cocktail of spiraling bureaucracy, increasing regulation, disruptive innovations left, right, and center, and also increasing mental health issues in the workplace, a lack of sense of purpose and meaning, reducing morale, and a lack of creativity and innovation. And rather than locking down with yesterday's logic, relying on yesterday's thinking of machine mindset, control, siloed thinking, he opens up and invites in a different quality of consciousness, invites in a collaborative culture where encouraging people to work across silos, across differences, across departments, and opening up that creativity, working also with different stakeholders differently. And in so doing, encouraging them to find a deeper sense of purpose. How can they create products that serve the clients, but actually enhance their well-being and vitality in the wider fabric of life? In so doing, starting to differentiate as an organization, attracting and retaining higher quality talent, morale soon rises, it gains a sense of purpose, and soon the organization differentiates, grows, whilst others contract. And then there's the CEO of a housing association in a very depressed part of the Western world, where again, she faces an increasingly toxic cocktail of spiraling bureaucracy, fickle government regulation, and all sorts of challenges for the client base in an austere and difficult time for them. And again, she's facing this kind of, increased problem around mental health and engagement in the workplace, people rising absenteeism, made all the more difficult with challenges around COVID. And rather than locking down with power and control and those yesterday's mindset mentality of narrowing down into the detail, she actually opens up, invests in her people, and creates a coaching culture where she encourages, trains people to have difficult conversations, to reach across boundaries of separation, to bring in more diverse mindset, and to encourage people to work not just across different stakeholders in the organization, but with different stakeholders across the organizational ecosystem. Soon they are differentiating, they are attracting and retaining higher quality talent, absenteeism falls, purpose rises, they win awards for their investors in people, and they also win awards for the best quality customer service that they provide. They start to grow whilst others contract. And the good news is that we can take inspiration from living systems within and all around us. There is 3.8 billion years worth of R&D at our disposal. It's free, accessible for us to tap into. If we can attune to that wisdom, if we can learn to listen and sense into the logic of life, rather than having an acquisitive, exploitative mindset, actually opening up to the wisdom that is before our very eyes. And that's what we explore in the book, a way of engaging with nature's wisdom. We talk about 3 levels of learning: living systems design, living systems culture, and living systems being. Now, living systems design, that's the whole exciting space around how we take inspiration from nature and apply that to our products, our processes, and our places, our architecture. Now, we've been doing that as humanity for millennia. But more recently, we see a revolution in this space: biophilic design, biomimicry, industrial ecology, circular economics, for instance, that is now being applied at the city level in Amsterdam, here in Europe, also Copenhagen and other places, where we look at how waste equals food, and we look at the ecosystem approach and apply that to our own processes and designs. So an example here would be the carpets company, American carpets company, now international carpets company, a multi-billion-dollar operation, and has a good heritage in this space of innovating through nature's wisdom. It applies biomimicry not only to the design of its carpet tiles, so they're more sustainable and easy to fit, but also inspiration from the gecko's feet, so they can stick the tiles in a more sustainable way, but also ways in which they can apply the way in which nature works across stakeholders and apply that to their ecosystem, to their value chain, if you like. And so one of their projects called Networks, which is where they work with fishing communities, fishing communities, not industrial fishing communities, sorry, indigenous communities over in the islands in the Pacific, and using their time-honored practices of fishing, which unfortunately are now largely redundant to them because of industrial fishing, because there's not enough fish in the seas to feed them. Using those practices, time-honored practices, to go and fish, but instead take out plastic, take out fishing nets, industrial fishing nets that are just discarded and creating all sorts of problems in the seas, regenerate the land and the seas around them, then turn that plastic, separate them out and turn it into a material that interface can use for recycled carpet tiles. So you have a net positive effect where the resilience of the community gains a sense of purpose, starts setting up their own trading stations and local banks, and can trade. We work with local community initiatives and also global charities. So it's this local and global effect that creates a regenerative design approach across the value chain by taking inspiration from living systems. Then there is also another initiative they have called Factory as a Forest, where they've helped design their factories using circular economics and biomimicry to look at the factory as a forest so that it can sequester carbon. It's actually a net positive carbon sink. Even though it's a manufacturing plant, it's actually sequestering carbon just through the clever insight of using nature's wisdom, like forests do, and that the water that comes into it actually leaves the plant fresher and cleaner than when it came in. So all of this is at our disposal today, and there's many organizations and many insights that we can take from living systems in this design space that we talk about in the book. But just as revolutionary and just as interesting is how we can take living systems insights to our human cultures, whether that be communities, cities, or organizations. And I'll specifically come back to organizational development in a minute and how we can apply living systems to that, because it's a fascinating area. But first, I want to talk about the third area, which is living systems being, which underpins all of this, a quality of consciousness, a way of being that the leader needs to bring in to today's environment. And that way of being is something that we can tap into from our own self-awareness and our own systemic awareness by opening up to nature within and all around us. And we see now there is a whole host of scientific research that points to how being in nature connects us and allows our left and right brain hemispheres to operate in more synchrony, our head, our heart, our gut open up, our body, mind, coherence, and bring more empathy and a compassion, ability to notice our blind spots, our own unconscious biases, and reach across perceived boundaries of separation. So this is why I take leaders out into nature in ancient woodlands. I've done this around the world, but I also do it here near London in the UK, where we take groups of leaders. I have a leadership team here coming on Friday. I had a one-to-one session with a leader here today. Take them out into nature, and by being in nature, we drop our guards, we ease off those masks that get in the way, and we open up into relating more readily with the world around us. It's that shifting consciousness that we need from machine thinking to living systems thinking. So now I'm harking back to living systems culture. How do we apply this insight to living systems culture? Well, if we look deep into nature, as Albert Einstein, the genius, said, when we look deep into nature, we understand everything better. And he was right. When we look deep into nature, we see that there are essential life dynamics that we'll do well to adhere to. And one powerful life dynamic that we can bring to our organizations as living systems is that of divergence, opening up, convergence, bringing together. And out of that tension of opening up and bringing together comes emergence. Nature's creative advance, the way that nature works, the way that nature unfolds is through emergence. And this is fundamental for our organizations going forward, for them to be able to adapt and evolve in increasingly volatile times, this emergence. It's fast becoming the holy grail, actually, for organizational development beyond resilience. And we can create emergence in our organizations by becoming more sensitive to these dynamics of divergence and convergence. So how do we create And how do we notice divergence and convergence in our organization? So through the lens of organizational development, divergence we create through distributed decision making, by empowering people to make change happen at the local level. So we reduce down the hierarchies, reduce down the layers that are getting in the way, and allow more flatter structures, more responsive structures. And also through diversity in terms of age, creed, culture, and gender, and perceptual horizon, how we see things, bringing different perspectives from different parts of the silos in the business and different parts of the ecosystem beyond the organizational membrane. So the organizational membrane permeates more readily, just like nature. We're increasing the relationality of the system, enlivening the system through that divergence, through that diversity and that decentralization. Too much of that, and the organization can become too chaotic, too amorphous. So it needs to be balanced with convergence. And convergence is this cohering effect. Convergence has traditionally come in business through power-based hierarchies of control and domination. And there's a whole philosophic and historic reason for that, born out of a militarized mind, rising patriarchy, ego explosion, and so forth, that I write about elsewhere. Suffice to say, that way of attending is actually undermining the vitality of our organizations, making them degenerative. So how do we provide convergence without relying on this power-based hierarchy of control and domination? And this is where the power of purpose comes in. And to be clear here, what I mean by purpose is not some mission statement that has been cleverly crafted by an external brand consultancy or a values charter that's posted on the wall. No, I mean something that's lived. It's lived in the day-to-day, a resonant sense of purpose. And when a threshold of people in the organization deeply resonate with the organizational sense of purpose, and sociological studies show that that can be as little as 10% of people in the organization deeply resonate with the organizational sense of purpose, a shift happens. Consciousness of the living system shifts. Now, for this connection to happen, for us to connect deeply and create that resonance, it needs to connect to our humanity, our deeper humanity, beyond the superficial ego, more than just becoming number one in the marketplace or maximizing profits or good handouts, or even becoming number one through customer service or quality customer excellence, as noble as that is. It needs to really touch us, meaning-seeking creatures that we are. It needs to be about serving life, about creating conditions that enhance society in the more than human world. And we're seeing that more and more through the rise of benefit corporations. It was just a few dozen a few years ago, now over 3,000. Big organizations like Denon and Unilever, their brands becoming benefit corporations, but also lots of other areas like conscious capitalism, teal evolutionary business, and so forth. All of that, this shift towards more meaningful organizations where the sense of evolutionary purpose in the business is really important. Then we allow that divergence and that convergence to start playing. We, as leaders in our organizations or as facilitators, can start playing with that dynamic. Rather than chief executive officer, we have chief ecosystem facilitators. We have acupuncturists, where we start to sense the energy flows, the stuckness, the aliveness, and see the organization in a holistic way, just as acupuncture sees the human body in a holistic way. We see that for our living organization, so that our organizations truly come alive and unlock the genius of ourselves and allow us to become more of who we truly are. And this is where COVID has been interesting. You know, we used to go to work, go through the turnstile and actually feel that we were leaving part of ourselves behind as we went into the machine mentality and put on our mask, our corporate mask. And of course, now we have Zoom, we have Microsoft Teams, we have different ways in. And it's interesting to see how there are cracks of light, opportunities for people to bring more of their human nature to play. And with that, potentially creativity, as well as the challenges COVID brings in many other ways. But playing with these tensions enables us to create emergence, which is what is vital for helping our organizations become future fit, become the future that we wish to see. So I'm going to summarize now. We're in the midst of a metamorphosis. Profound shifts are affecting the way we work, how and why we do things, and the purpose and meaning that we bring to our organizations, our social systems, and our wider civilization. And the more conscious you and I can be, the leaders, the change agents, the next generation coming through, of the way in which nature works, the living systems, and seeing our organizations not through lenses, not through machine lenses that separate, but actually open up those threat tinted glasses and open up beyond the illusion of separation into recognizing our organizations are living systems. The more we help our organizations come alive and we create the futures that we all know in our hearts are possible. So I'll finish now on a quote from the well-respected business futurist John Naisbitt, who says that the greatest breakthroughs of the 21st century won't occur because of technology. They'll occur because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. Now, I love that, to be involved in this expanding concept of what it means to be human, to help us, Homo sapiens, which means wise beings, truly live up to our name and sense into this deeply wise, sentient and interconnected world. It's that's at the heart of regenerative leadership, opening up to true wisdom and not departing from nature. And if not now, then when? This is, after all, humanity's hour of reckoning. So thank you for your kind attention. Let me know how else I can help today.
Thank you, Giles. Thank you so much for your great speech. We actually have some questions coming from our audience we would like to ask you. The first question is, they are really curious about your transition from consulting at KPMG 10 years ago to your recent journey doing the sustainability initiative field. So they're curious, like, what propels you to make that decision, and then how did you determine that this track is the right track for you at that time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Really, I mean, early on in my life, I always had a deep sense of connection with nature. And then it was later on in my teens, actually, at secondary school, in a free lesson, that the maths teacher of all people showed us some videos of animals being tested on live, and animals in factory farms, and animals going to abattoirs, being skinned alive, and all sorts of stuff that is just, unfortunately, a very normal part of current day civilization. So this was back in the 80s. I'm 48 now, and so this was probably when I was about 15, and it had a real effect on me. It was like someone sort of pushing a spear into my heart. I was open to nature, and I could see that what was going on was just truly unacceptable at every level, and it certainly wasn't civilized. So the wheels came off the road a bit for me, really, when I realized that this civilization that I've sort of been learning and I've been groomed into, and my parents telling me I just needed to learn and go into business and so forth, and just become part of the system so I could serve this civilization, because that's what one did, suddenly didn't make any sense. So I sort of went down my own rabbit hole, if you like, and explored, found out what was really going on, and couldn't really understand it. Couldn't really understand why we were chaining the rainforests, clear cutting them. And this was in the 80s. I mean, it's obviously just got worse since. And all sorts of things going on, child labor and so forth. That was just a common part of the way in which we produce products. So that got me kind of going on this path then. And I made a promise to myself, because I got involved in activism at the time, and quite quickly saw how a lot of this activism was actually quite fear driven and projecting the blame onto others, whether it be blaming the bulldozer driver in the rainforest, or the doctors testing on the animals, or the plant company, or whoever it was, or the multinationals or business. It was always something out there to blame. And I could see that something else was going on, which was that we were all complicit in this, and that actually we had all got ourselves caught up in this sense of separation. So we felt it was okay to wound other parts of the fabric of life. And that it wasn't about blaming anything. It was more about coming to accept what was going on and being able to shift our consciousness, or transcend through it, or remind ourselves of the innate sacredness of life. So I vowed to go into business so I can understand business and speak the business language, so I could then change the system from within. So for the rest of my 25 years in business, I was a bit like a secret agent, not really sharing why I was in business, just getting on with it, putting my head down. I started in property. So I understand the foundation of the capitalist system and how that works. I became a chartered surveyor, I understand law, economics, and property valuation. And then I moved into KPMG because I could see how important management consultancy was and how that would enable me to gain insight and experience in pretty much every sector, which I then did, and work with boards and senior people. And in my journey, I actually came to realize that there's a lot of good people in business. There's a lot of good people doing stuff that perhaps then contributes to things that are not good. And I also ended up running my own practice, 50 people, my own P&L and so forth. So I got hands-on experience at being a leader, which was, with hindsight, extremely useful because I've now got involved in leadership development. But then I moved. I mean, I then had the opportunity to sort of get promoted and work in a bigger practice and so forth. It was being fast-tracked. And it was around that time, around 2005, that I kind of had this wobble. And then it was David Attenborough, a program on television, my flat in London. I remember the moment well, where he said, the time is now. And I was already having a wobble to try and work out, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? When do I make good on my promise? I've been in business all this time, getting successful. How long do I wait? And then out comes David Attenborough saying, the time is now to make good, to help rectify damage that we're doing to life. And when he said the time is now, it just spoke directly to me as if, yeah, the time is now for me to change, for me to make good on my promise and not just carry on learning about business, but to do something about it. So I then changed and moved into sustainable business and became global head of sustainability for a multinational. And that was really good experience. And I learned a lot about sustainable business and helping other businesses become more sustainable. But I left corporate life in 2012, thoroughly spent actually with whole corporate life and global travel, and really needing to reconnect to nature, get back to my love and rejuvenate myself. And I used the birth of our first child as an excuse to just leave corporate life. No one could understand that I wasn't going to the competition or I wasn't doing anything. I had no plans, and I just left and started to reconnect and went on my own journey. And I'd already published my first book by then, The Nature of Business. I was already working on how we could learn from living systems around biomimicry for creative innovation. And that led to my second book, The Illusion of Separation, which was a deeper exploration to philosophy. And then I slowly but surely come back into business again. And now I work with leaders, realizing the importance of connecting them to nature. So that's been my journey. Working with KPMG was a really important part of that journey. They were good people, good employer. And now I work with management consultants, actually helping them become more conscious of the kind of future we wish to design. A long answer, I'm sorry.
Great. Yeah, I'm also like working in the technology field, like technology consulting field, and then like I think, your journey towards accessibility is something that I also want to pursue. So also we have another question from our audience saying that how do you think the impact from the pandemic, the how it will transform the world? And we have a time limited, so this question may be short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think the pandemic has shocked everything, and any shock to any system has two responses. The first is fear, naturally, and a kind of locking down and going back into and a retrenching into an old mindset. But quite quickly, it also ruptures the status quo and allows us to then start seeing cracks in the system. So the breakdown actually leads to a breakthrough. And I was with the leader I was with today. He was saying how the confidence people have now to deal with significant change means that, you know, dealing with other systemic challenges like climate change, like becoming more sustainable and so forth. Before it was always like, yeah, okay, let's just do it piecemeal. Now, having dealt with this COVID shock, we're kind of more open to just doing things more radically, which is, of course, exactly what we need to do if we're going to survive as a humanity. Is that quick enough?
Great. Yeah. So our audiences will like type in the question, and then if you think like you would like to answer the question, you can directly tap the answer and answer our audiences. So would like to welcome the next speaker, Maria. I'm going to share the slide now.